Fausto Puglisi, president of Cyber Trading University.
Most people always focus on the past, where as a professional day trader, we just focus on the future. You can do very well in trading, and you don't have to have a good amount of movement for the stock to go up. Welcome back, everyone. My name is Fausto, your host here at the Cyber Traders, and another podcast. Once again, look, thanks for being here. I know you guys were just with me yesterday where I had Price Headley, but I really am super excited about the next person I have that's on my show. Listen, I know this guy for as long as I've been in the business for. I want to tell you a little bit more about how we met, what he's been done in his life, things that he's changed people's lives, you know. And it's just been a great, great honor just to know him, his family, everything else has really kind of was an inspiration to me in this industry to get to where I am. If it wasn't, I think I probably wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for, you know, the gentleman that I'm introducing you, which is Tom Busby. So Tom, thanks for being here. You know, it's been great. How you been? You look great. You got a little more gray, but other than that, you look fine.
Yeah, a little gray, but that's okay. I'm still going strong, and Fausto's absolutely 100% correct. You know, we both had radio shows back in Texas years ago, and we met in Las Vegas. We hit it off, became fast friends. Back then, we were young and, you know, trying to figure out how to do what we do today, which is you know, and we both came to the same conclusion. Our customers were a lot better off if we could educate them. And, you know, and if they got that education, then they end up being able to maybe hang around long enough. A lot of people come in the door and out the door, and we've seen a lot of people do that. This is a hard game, and he'll tell you, and I'll tell you, there's no easy solution when you are, you know, trying to figure out how to take your dollar and get paid for taking the risk. But over the years, it's been fun. Fausto, I used to have a facility in Mobile, Alabama. He's been there many times, and spoke at our major conferences and all of that. But when he invited me on here, you know, how could you say no to a guy you've known for 30 years? And, you know, and you still, you know, we still talk and all that. But the bottom line is, folks, we've been a lot of places together back in the trade show days. And Fausto was our food guru back then. He would take us to the restaurants. And I still remember the story out in Vancouver.
What story was that?
At a trade show.
What story was that? I don't know. I like when you tell me. You tell the people. Yeah.
Okay. Well, so we're out in Vancouver, and I'm at the main hotel the trade show's going. Fausto says, "Hey, you need to come down here and stay with me at this hotel. I got a heck of a deal in this hotel. It's a new hotel called the Pacific Rim." And I said, "Fausto, I'm sort of a convenience guy. I don't really want to go down there," but I decided to go down with him. We checked it out, and we went up on the elevator about the 12th floor, and got to the 12th floor, and they said, "Hello, Mr. Puglisi. You got a guest with you?" And he introduced me, and he had this concierge type arrangement on this hotel. He said, "Tom, I can get you in the hotel." I said, "Well, I got my rest of my people over at the hotel. We had to bring them over." So we all came over to this Pacific Rim, and you know, the food was fantastic. And Fausto tells me, "Hey, we got a VIP meeting tonight," and he said it's with the Bare Naked Ladies. And I said, "Man, I don't know about going to that." I'm thinking to myself, but I said, "Okay." So I didn't know there was a band in Canada called the Bare Naked Ladies, and so we show up at the Bare Naked Ladies concert. They marshal us in the VIP line, put us right on by the stage. You remember all this? Got to know him. We ended up getting on TV, local TV, because I guess
a student told us.
Yeah, right. And then hey, I saw you on TV last night.
I'm like, really? We weren't. We were over there trying to like teach a class and stuff. We want people to know that we were like, you know, partying up, like, and they thought it was really cool and very unique. Like, okay, then maybe we'll tell them the whole story. So that was a lot of fun. And it was only like 100 people. We were like the only 100 people watching the Bare Naked Ladies in this hotel. It was really, really, really cool. But you know, we have a lot of good stories together. And, you know, and the big thing is, like, I always learn, Tom, just like you know, one thing I always appreciate is that you know, we traveled a lot back in the day, but now we don't because we got webinars and stuff, you know, and it made things a little bit easier. But we always made the best of it. We have made the fun of it. Food always kept us together. You know, I love food. I mean, and everything else. And we always went to great restaurants, try and make the best of it. We were always there early with our staff. It made them happy. But, you know, like I said, it's, you know, that really made it more of like a trip out of it. But it was great to see so many people around the world. I mean, we've been all over Canada. We've been all over the US. We never really hit Europe together, you know, but mainly US and the Canada part about it. But yeah, we met some great people down in the way. But the big thing, Tom, you know, over the years, you know, you've been doing this a long time, and we got a lot of people in here that are having, you know, issues, you know, comes to trading and stuff like that. What was like some of the biggest challenges that you encountered teaching people over the years that that people need to get taken care of? Because, like, listen, we're going through a really interesting, tough time right now. I mean, like, we've got a new president. Every day is like a different adventure. It's not like a typical president where he just says something and now they're on cruise control. Now they just, you know, they have their own agenda. I mean, this guy's actually doing what he's doing, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I always tell people you already have to develop a process for trade entry. And you know, there's a lot of different processes out there, but one of the things that you'll find out is that the market's a 24-hour market, okay? It starts in Asia in the evening, and then it rolls into Europe, and then from Europe it rolls into the day, and then during the day you got really two parts. I call it the New York part and the California part. And so these times are very important for trend changes during the day or during the night. And so you get that process, and you got to figure out whether to be, I always say the most important question, no matter if you're trading stocks or you're trading options or trading futures, the most important question a trader has to answer is whether to be long, whether to be short, or should you stay out? Like this morning, we had the CPI report. That's a big news item, one of the top 5 of the month. And so I told everybody that I got this saying, it's called patience will pay. And when you have a big news item, you're better off watching rather than getting on the wrong side of a market or letting your bias make trades. The other thing that I think that I've learned that's really big is you've got to stay balanced. Always be open to learning. You know, somebody might have something you totally disagree with, but you might pick up one item that will make you improve, you know, what you're doing. And then when you're trading, you know, you got certain risk dollars that you're going to use. The best thing I would tell you is try to keep it level. I never know after 40 years of trading whether the trade's a good trade or a bad trade until I finish. And I just keep all my bets level, I call it, because I want to, you know, the ones that are good, you know, you wish you had everything in that one, but that's not the way it works. You don't know. You know, you're following a process, you're getting into the trade, you're hoping that it does what you want it to do. And if it does, you get paid. And, you know, I got a couple things like that I'll go through, look at the day, say, okay, what does the day look like? Is this an up day? Is it a down day or a sideways day during this time frame? I sort of stay isolated. We just shifted a little bit ago to the second half of the day. And so if we're going to get a trend change today, it's going to happen in the next hour. You know, the odds are it's going to happen in the next hour if you're going to get one. And so if you get one of those, what you really want to do is just adapt to it, you know, because if you're trading, especially during the day, I do a lot of day trading, obviously, and I do a lot of swing trading and overnight trading. But the real, I like, and Fausto, I think feels the same way. In the day, it's a lot less risk trading during the day. Yeah. When you go to bed at night, you're going to end up taking overnight risks. And if you don't think I'm right, go check the exchanges out. They require a lot more money to take things overnight than they do intraday. And so the best handicappers in the world are solidifying the point during the day is where your best time to trade, especially if you don't like to lose a lot of money. And, you know, that can get pretty severe from Friday to a Monday or Monday to a Friday, you know. So about 3 in the afternoon Eastern time, I'll start looking at everything in my account and say, okay, this doesn't have a chance, and I pitch it. And taking losses, let me talk about taking losses, Fausto, because I used to have a real trouble taking losses. You know, when you're a new trader and all that. If you take a loss, I promise you there's a reason you took that loss, because it's going to get a lot bigger if you stay with it. So I always, when I take a loss, I think, man, I'm glad I'm taking that loss where I don't have to take the pain and suffering of what I did maybe my first 10 years in this business, you know, let me out of it, you know? So I think that what I would tell people, always read, educate yourself, listen, you'll learn from people. And if you find somebody that really strikes a chord with you, you maybe ought to follow them and learn how they're approaching the market, because everybody's different, right? Yeah. Everybody's different. Different degrees of risk, different degrees of strategies, and all that. So.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we all have mentors, you know, we always learn. And I said, listen, you try definitely a little bit of everyone's stuff. I mean, you're going to learn a little bit from everybody. I mean, and everyone just builds a style. Like, there's a lot of your students that are my students, you know, and a lot of my students are yours. Sometimes it might not work for you, you know, and you might want to try something else, and you should definitely do that. But like, if somebody want to get started, Tom, because this is another thing that I always encounter, people are probably asking, because we have a lot of listeners here from all over all the different social networks. If somebody really want to get started, you know, where do they go? I mean, and how much do they need to get started? I mean, like, listen, trading is a very big failure rate. You know that. And that's why we love teaching people, because we don't want people to listen. We want people in our industry, but we also don't want the negativity, because it's such a very big failure rate. So, you know, if someone comes in, did join you or didn't join you, how do you go about, you know, getting them to make that first step?
Well, first of all, you got to learn the language of the market. We talk in different terms. So let me just give you a couple examples. You don't know what a stop is, you better learn what a stop is. You don't know what a limit order is, you better learn what a limit order is. And then now, in the world of electronics, you got to learn how to place that order. You're no longer talking to a guy on the phone saying, hey, place me a stop at this order. You got to do it yourself now. It's sort of a electronic world. And let me tell you about a computer. You put that in there and you do the wrong thing, you're going to get out of that position. You maybe not intend to get out of that position. So you got to learn, you know, your platform that you're using. You got there's just so much to learn about how to even have a reasonable chance to succeed. Okay, that's number one. And number two, it's all about going back to that basic question. Once you learn how to place orders, exit orders, do all that, then you got to learn whether you're going to play the market to the upside, play the market to the downside, or should you have a strategy that takes advantage of it going sideways. And there's a lot of things to learn about that, but the bottom line is it's not something that everybody here can learn. It's like the ABCs of trading, I guess. You learn these terms, you learn what the language is, and then as far as money, you know, that's up to every individual what they're going to put up, because everybody's different. I've had very wealthy people that if they got down $1,000, you thought they were going to jump off the roof. And I've had people with a lot smaller sums of money. They'd risk the whole juggernaut, and they would not even, you know, drink a milkshake and smile. It all depends on how you, the person, absorbs the movement, so to speak, right? And you don't want to be in a position that you can't think, okay? Always be thinking. And if you're task saturated, oh man, I'm down 1,000, I'm down 2,000, and you're making decisions because of that, you're going to lose money. Know before you get into a trade where you're wrong. Know where you're going to take profit on the trade. Don't let your greed take over. It's going to the moon. And don't let your fear take over. Oh, this thing's going, this is a disaster. Have a framework based to set up your risk reward model. Okay. And then the thing I always tell people, Fausto, and I've always been big on this. So like I love baseball, so I always play baseball. I say, how accurate was I in the last 10 trades? Was I 50% accurate? Was I 60% accurate? Was I 70% accurate? How accurate was I in the entry of getting in that position? And the other thing that you do, and this is something I always tell new people, have a notebook. And I've been doing it for 40 years. I have a notebook old fashioned. I'll write. Yep, Fausto's got it too.
Yeah, we'll
I'll
have it.
write down information that might become important to me about certain things. I'll describe a certain situation. At the start of the week, I guess the drone sector started going higher. Well, there's a couple of good drone stocks out there. One's Joby Aviation. The other one is Archer Aviation. Well,
Yeah, we've been trading Archer this morning. We're trading all day.
Symbols ARCH.
Yeah.
Or something. Anyway, I had to trade. The first time I traded it was today, right? Archer. I traded Joby before. I never traded Archer. And so what I did, Fausto, is pretty cool. What I did is I ended up watching it. I was patient. It went higher than Monday's high, so I bought it, right? And the stock just hit 1250. It's backed up to 1211. But I had a target at 1245 on the trade I made, so I got out half my position. Okay, so I banked some profits on it. Now I'm not going to lose money on Archer because if it turns negative, I'll be out of it. But the point I'm trying to make here: pay attention, and you do it by sectors. There's a great book out there I always tell people to read. It's called The World's Greatest Stock Trader. It's about the story of Jesse Livermore. You met him when you were down in Mobile. Richard Smitten wrote it. It's a great book about the life of Jesse Livermore. There's more things in that one book about trading than you find almost in any book out there, because it talks about stocks and tape reading and what to look for. I just think that people need to read that book. It's a great book. And it's a great read too.
I want to get back to what you said earlier, and I think I probably never heard it better than anyone, that explained it, because you've been doing this a very long time. That here you're trying to tell everyone about how to put entries and exits, what a stop is. You wouldn't even imagine how many people come up to me and ask me, what is a bid and offer? They're like, what is a bid? And I'm like, and that's okay. Listen, that's why you're here. They don't know the bid is a buyer, and they don't know what to ask is a seller. Like, they don't even place an order out there. I remember back in the day that I had to tell people off. Before we had decimals, that's why we went to decimals, we had fractions. I was teaching math classes. And if you can't even figure the spread on a stock, just on that with the fractions, you should not be trading if you can't get past that. And it's crazy. Listen, I know, I have a home living channel, right? And I do a lot with chickens and everything like that. And Tom, I had someone come up to me, and this very smart, intelligent people, and people here, you probably get it. Some of you might not even know this. Because I own a chicken business too, coops and everything else. And someone's asking me, do you need a rooster for a chicken to lay an egg? Now I'm like, no, you don't, and I'm like, I thought you need a rooster to do it. I'm like, no, that's only if you want to fertilize the egg so it can have babies. A woman has her period, has her egg all the time, every month. They just have it every day. And only way it's got to get fertilized. Same thing with a chicken. And like, oh, I didn't know that, and I'm talking about very intelligent, smart people. And that's okay. That's why they're asking you. That's a good person to teach, because they're willing to admit that they don't get it. And like you just said about the losers, I always look at losers as a good thing. I'm like, because I knew I was going to lose more. And I'm like, and in my class, my students, I tell all the time, I'm like, man, that's a good loss. I'm like, I come back, I'm like, I think it's not even there anymore. So this is why, with your experience, been around for 40 years, I think now and that's with me with 35. This is what you learn as being a good listener, and that's what we got to look at. We're not influencers. There's people that could have millions of followers, not like us, but we're not looking for a million followers. So we don't need them. We need to follow people, because not a lot of people, those million people are not really qualified to trade, and that's where that comes in. So, about now, what are people doing now? Which you've been around for a while. Did you change your style at all? As in when you got into, because this is other people think that they think they want to be options traders, and then they find out they can't do it. They fail and they quit. They try to do futures because someone sold them whatever. I'm saying the dream or whatever, and everyone's selling you the dream while their style's better, and they fail. How does someone get past that? Because I know you've changed. You went from futures, you do options, you do stocks or whatever. How do you know what really, is it the times? Is it the market? Is it, what does somebody should do to know what's right, what's best for them? It's not.
Well, the only way I found out was trade all of them, okay? Because I've traded stocks, I traded options, I've traded futures, all of them. I'm more, I'm probably more comfortable entering and exiting futures, okay? Because I've traded. I used to be a member of the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, right?
Right.
So, but as time changed, where options became more prevalent, uh, I became using my futures knowledge to trade options on stocks. And stocks themselves, I like stocks, but you got to remember, 7 out of every 10 years, you can get a chimpanzee to help you throw those darts and make money. There's 3 years that you're going to get killed if you don't know what's going to get you killed. So I had to learn what would tell me those 3 years. And so I trade stocks, I trade options, I trade futures. But I think that options are a neat part of the market. You specialized in low price stocks, right? Okay.
Yeah.
But that takes an intensity. You really, if I get a low price stock, normally I'll tell Fausto, hey, take a look at this stock, and he'll run it through his deal. And I remember one stock I gave you, I forget what it was, Workforce or something. It was about $3 and went up to 15 or something. But that's just an example of my memory, right? But if you get a stock, you got to have a process to determine how are you going to handle that stock and and what you're going to do. So I'll trade anything, Fausto. This is my new rule. I say that I really come to this conclusion. I'll trade futures, I'll trade stock, I'll trade options when the odds are in my favor. And I'm able, on the spot, with the software I created and everything else I got going for me, to tell you whether to be long, short, or out of that stock or ticker or future or whatever. And that's quite an advantage, because in the old days, I'm sitting here writing these things down, on paper, and then finally making a decision, and I was buying at the highs and selling at the lows. Anybody ever done that? Yeah, I did. Yeah, I was great at it. I was wrong way Tom, get in there and do it. And I've learned a lot of patience too, a lot of patience when it comes to trading. Risk never really scared me so much. And I guess the greed portion of what I could make was overweighing the balance of risk versus reward. So over the years, I will say I've got it in the right degree for me personally. And I'm still playing baseball, I guess. If I get in a position, I hit a certain point, it's time to go to the dugout and stay out of the market. If I'm not seeing the market exactly the way I should be seeing the market.
No, listen, you're absolutely right, 100%. I trade everything. Some people because there are some people so fixated on the fabulous 7, right? Sometimes they don't move. You've been trading Apple today. It hasn't gone anywhere. So what are you doing? Meanwhile, you missed the run on Tesla. But you missed the run on Archer, like those stocks like you're talking about. Like today, we've been trading a lot. We've been trading for a while, because these day trades turn to swing trades. A lot of nuclear stocks. So people are like, well, how do you know which nuclear stock to trade? I'm like, it's in the big percentage gainers, like you just said. I'll trade anything as long as my risk is less and the reward's there. And that's where.
You just said something very key, Fausto. So what you do? Say you do 10 trades. Everybody out there ought to take the last 10 trades and look at how much you lost and how much you gained, and then look at what your accuracy rate is. Because if your accuracy rate is 50%, meaning you flip the coin, you better make as much as you lose, or you're going to be out of this business. Right. So if your accuracy rate is greater, I've always put in other words, I'm the Ty Cobb of trading. Get me on base. I'm not trying to hit that home run. I'm just trying to get on base. And a lot of people say, Tom, you go for 20, 25% on options. I said, look, it's up to you to educate yourself to find out which one of those 20 or 25% winners I give you that you're going to run to 100% or 150%. That's the education portion. And so if people would stop and say, let me back up and look at my last 10 trades, that'd be a good place to start. Because if you look at those 10 trades, they'll tell you a story, okay? Tell you something else, Fausto. You remember this years ago when I used to call it green circle? I'd do green circle days if I made money. And I found out for whatever reason, in a course of in the month, Thursdays ended up being a bad day. I'd end up with red days on Thursday, and I thought, well, I need to slow down on Thursdays. That was something I learned from my green circle day. There's certain times of the month that you're better as a trader than you're not. So you got to figure that out about yourself. And everybody's different. So you got to do it for yourself. I can't tell you that you're a bad trader on Thursday. I can't tell you a bad trader on Monday. You'll figure it out if you just sit there and mark each day. And then
you journal yourself. So we do. We give journals.
How about consistency? You got to say, did I just luck out, or did I really have a process that got me into this particular stock that made me money? And are you consistent? When you see those movements, did it pay you? Now, Fausto's a tape reader like I am. We watch the actual movement of the stocks. It's an old-fashioned skill. Nobody teaches it anymore. My software, keeps up with it, but I'm just saying, I can look, when I'm having this conversation with you about something I love talking about, right? I'm sitting here looking at the market. What has it done? This time of day, it's pulled back, okay? Well, is the pullback a corrected move, or is it a real turn down? Well, you got to have what I call a pivot number. And that pivot number sort of lets me decide, is it pulled back or is it really turned down? So when I look at today's market, I'm looking at it and I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, it's just a corrective move. That's all I'm seeing right now. Now that might change because I have these things called reference bars. And we just finished what I call the Genesis bar. And now we're going to move to what I call RB4, which is, I call it after lunch. Okay, so everybody in America's had lunch now. We're going to find out the true trend for California. And that'll happen between 1:30 and 2. But it's very interesting how around the clock you can trade. And now with Fausto, I don't know if you've done any work with it, but I love this overnight trading where stocks are trading around the clock.
Yep.
Hey, I don't know if they can see this. Wrote this in 2005. The markets never sleep. I was Global Insights for More Consistent Trading. 2005. This book is still valid today. It's unbelievable what I thought back then. I thought we'd get here, and now it's great. I'm just like, this is my heyday. I've been waiting on this my whole career. I'm glad that I still got hair, not this gray, but I still got hair, and I can see this kind of market. I'm loving it.
Yeah, that's good. Well, you know what? Like, listen, you've been doing it long enough. So you've been there. You saw the good, the bad, the ugly. And you know what? I think that's something I would like to ask you, where I think people probably don't realize that we've all been through tough times, right?
Absolutely.
And and those are some of the best times for you because you have to learn how to survive. Like you just said, some of those losers basically helped you out. So, tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, what was a tough time for you in the market that, because you're still here. You obviously made it through it. We've all been there. And
October 19th, 1987. It
87.
Was called a crash at the time. It was. I write about this in my first book, Winning the Day Trading Game. But that was to me a separator. Because at that time, I'd come out of the Air Force and risk didn't scare me. And I was having a heyday of time back in 87. And in October, on that Friday, the market went way up, way down. Then on Monday, you couldn't give away positions. I lost more money on that day than any time in the history of my trading. I was a young guy, and it was tough. And so it was a real turning point because I went from I'd take any chance I wanted to being totally broke, and I had two small kids at the time, two small boys. And, I didn't know if I was going to come back from it, Fausto. It really damaged me from the risk side of the equation. It damaged me where I would be able to be here today because, I got to a point where I was ready to give up and go practice law. You know.
Well, when did you get? Well, in 1987, when did you start?
I started in it's probably the end of 79, 80. Okay.
So you already
I
had
was
like
the broker at Merrill Lynch.
Okay, so you've been doing so you already had like 8 years, 10 years under your belt, and then
Yeah.
that's what happened. Wow, that was pretty scary. I mean, like I've heard what happened in 87. I mean, I came in at 94 in this
Now, you
industry.
missed all the fun, Fausto. You missed me taking a whole bunch of money and flushing it. I mean,
Listen, I've been through some
think
tough
of it.
times. It wasn't that bad, but I've been through tough times. I mean, I've been through the internet bubble, which was pretty crazy. I mean, that's when all prop trading took off and stuff like that. The financial crisis was pretty crazy, but you know what it is? Like when you survive some of those, you know that those catastrophes make opportunities. Some people never realize have been through it, other than maybe COVID. You witness a small one, what we had with Liberation Day, that when the market crashed in November, when Trump did that with the tariff thing, we had that big drop and a big bounce. It's all about being cash is king, but like if you could survive, and I think everyone here needs to survive one of those, if you can survive it, you will succeed, and to now realize that there's going to be opportunities, because you're going to see opportunities like, oh my God, I could have made so much money, and it's going to happen again. I mean, it's like every day. It's
always happens. There's always that cycle that you think you got everything under control, and then it hits you. And so that's where I get, that's why I always tell people there's less risk if you make your decisions during the day. And one of the things I learned back from my Merrill Lynch days, all the little old ladies ended up with all the money. The oil speculators died of heart attacks. Okay. Yeah, because those little old ladies wasn't taking overnight risks. Okay. They used to drive me crazy. What do you think interest rates going to do? I go, man, I don't want to talk about interest rates. I want to trade, But the whole point was I learned something from it because I listened to those little old ladies. So I really spent my time learning how to get in and get out. One of the big advantages you got today, Fausto, is that the cost of getting in and getting out is nothing like it was when we started. I mean, we used to pay they talk about tariffs being high. We used to pay a tariff to get in, a tariff to get out.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was just crazy. The amount.
Like $20, $25 a ticket. And I tried telling them, I made money then.
Yeah,
I mean,
me too.
I mean, and think about this. How many trades did you do a day back then?
You talk about then or now?
Yeah, no, then.
Today, I probably do maybe 30, 40.
Back then?
No, now.
No, back then I'm talking about.
I'm talking about right now. I do 30 to 40 trades a day. Back then, I was doing 500 to 1,000 trades a day. Okay.
Okay. So
I'm like, I've slowed down to a slow speed of trading. Okay. I mean, I'm trading. Hey, listen to this. You want to hear something funny? Well, we've been talking. I'm in a trade right now. Okay.
I just said while you were talking, I had to get out of a trade because I was in the SMR. I was getting a little nervous, started going down. I'm like, shit, I'm talking, I'm going down. So because we had a big run up. But the reason why I ask you this is like, okay, so as you get better, you become wiser, and you obviously know how to turn down. How the hell did you do 500,000 trades a day back then, writing tickets, this and that? You must have been a freaking animal. You know what I mean? And not only that, what I want everyone to understand is that, listen, like most I ever did was like 150, and I was paying $20 a ticket back then. That I was dumping about $2,000 to $3,000 just in the commissions. And I didn't even break even. People are like, damn, I mean, like, and if you made $2,000 to $3,000 a day with zero commissions today, I mean, you're making at least $500,000, $750,000. I mean, we were spending that and you know how much money that was back then? That's like spending like $10,000 in ticket charges today. And we made money back then. That's how much these brokerage firms made.
Yeah, let me describe what Fausto alluded to. Back then, we had to write tickets on every trade you did. And at the end of the day, I'd have about a foot half high of stack of tickets that were written. Now, I didn't write the tickets. I had a girl that would sit across from me, and all she did was write tickets constantly all day long. Her name was Laura. And the bottom line was, but I thought, man, I traded great today. And then with a stack about, that high, I'd look and I didn't make any money because of the cost of doing the transactions. I go, God, I lost money today. I thought I traded great, but the transaction cost took me under for the day. And matter of fact, that's what drove me to join the exchange, to get cheaper rates, and but you're right, Fausto. It was a lot of handicaps back then to do short-term trading. The big wirehouses, let me tell you, the Merrills, all the JP Morgan, they didn't want you to do trading, okay? And the reason they didn't, because they knew that if you did a lot of trading, you're going to have transaction costs that would make you lose money, and that would end up in lawsuits or whatever, or unhappy customers, and they discouraged people from trading, okay?
Right.
I think you used to do the SO stuff, right? The NASDAQ stuff?
Yeah, that's what I was a Souls Bandit. I was one of the original
Souls Bandits, right? Yeah. It was interesting because that was the first time, I think, that people started having a reasonable cost of entry and exit. Like you said, back in those days before then, we were paying, $25 a ticket or $25 a trade if you had real good rates.
We were traders, and that's what we paid. I mean, some people here were retail clients, and you remember you were paying like maybe sometimes 2% on the sale. They were paying like $200, $300 a ticket, and that's why, like you said, they discourage people because the broker is going to charge. So, but and we're the trading department, and then obviously then there's the broker's fee and everything else. So that also discourages a lot of people. But it's a new age now. It's totally different, and that's why I try to explain to everyone here that this is why the New York Stock Exchange doesn't exist anymore. It's going to be, you're going to have bar mitzvahs and weddings down there. There's no way down there because they figure they wanted to get rid of, and this is where SOS Bandits came into play, where you brought it up. The exchanges don't like the private club of the market makers back then. So they had to buy them out because back in 1987, what happened was if the traders weren't working and we're not answering the phone, do those trades, nobody made a what's what I'm looking for? Had an order out there.
They were taking care of their book.
So they're like, who am I calling?
Their livelihood. That's why they wouldn't answer the phone,
Right. They're like, I'm not taking that order. I'm like, well, who's taking the order? They're like, well, there's only those 5 people, and they just went out for a beer and they left. You know what I mean? Then Like, well, this guy wants out of his position. So that was like a big wake up call. That was the start of why SOS came into play. Just let you know, it's because the exchanges realized that they had, they put themselves in a box that was manipulated by market makers, and that's where we came in. But now they figured out where, what? Let's get rid of them all. Let's make it a fair system. And that's where the opportunity is, where a lot of people here are starting to realize it. You are now a market maker. Like, who is here? Westeen just said, hey, Faust, do you use NASDAQ Book Viewer for day trading? And I said, just email me. And I'll tell you, yes, because the exchanges want you to have it now. You don't need to have a seat on the exchange and pay $1 million. That's gone. Those days are over. And that's why you have educators like us.
Also, and what he's talking about is teaching you how to use that book viewer. I've seen it. He taught me, but it's really a inside look from a guy that was there before they built the book viewer. And so now you're learning how it's put together. You can just look at it, read the instructions. That's not going to help you. That's where you need the education and know those finer points of what it means when you see things there. Okay. That's an example, I think, of being around a long time, right, Fausto? You learn stuff.
You learn something new for every day. Listen, the other day, remember I was down there in Florida with you. I was showing you how to use level 4, and we were looking at and book map and stuff. And you're like, and you were looking at, like I can get some, I think, or swim. I didn't even know that. So technology is getting greater, and great traders like listen. Can you teach an old dog new tricks? A little. A little. I mean, not that much. I mean, you find something new. Like if you see an edge, because we get solicited all the time from these people. Hey, Tom, you look at this new software, and like, here we go again. You know what I mean? Here's another person. Here's another black box. Here's another algorithm. Here's another AI person. But sometimes, we have, you're savvy enough. What really does work, and if it hits a light bulb, like we talk about, like when you come to some of our events that we do. If it hits a light bulb with you, go with that person. You know what I mean? Learn more about it. That's what it takes. You really getting back to education, Tom, like how many educators do you think are out here in this world?
Well, there's a lot of people that portray themselves as educators. There's a lot of people that portray themselves as traders. I think that you got, my rule was always, how do I separate somebody, what I think I want to learn from versus somebody not. They had to trade live in front of me. If I saw it trade live in front of me, I would pay more attention. If somebody wants to tell me that, hey, you should have bought this stock yesterday, look how great I'm doing, I usually just turn that off. But if they'll show me right in front of me, then they got my attention. Okay, that was always my test.
I learned that from
when we went to trade shows.
I learned that from you.
People, and they'd come there with, and you, man, that guy's very good. I guess you really, pay attention to what this guy was saying, and then you ask him a question you knew for a fact it was BS because the guy hadn't traded, the guy hadn't done what it took to be in front of somebody that's going to put their money on the line. I mean, that was always a stickler for me, and that actually. I introduced, I don't know if you remember that, Fausto, I introduced live trading to those trade shows back in the day because I couldn't compete with the Star Wars booths they had because they would spend $70,000, $80,000 for those booths. And I'd go, how does anybody put that kind of money in those booths? You felt like you're going to launch to Mars or whatever, So I started doing live trading. And the first time I did it was in Orlando. I don't know if you were there when I did that, but I had a line like a mile long to get in this little room I had to watch me live trade. And they'd never seen that at one of these shows. And, it was sort of interesting because that was my edge. For when I went to the show to pay the high cost of being at the show, I built the rooms because of that, And
like I said, I learned that from you. That's why I do all live trading right in the beginning to get everyone's attention. I go right into it. As much as I like my style, I get right in. I show, hey, let's go right to the market. Let's see what's moving, see what's working. And you catch someone's attention right there. So what I was getting to back before is this about all these educators out there. I always tell everybody that, yes, number one, you're right. Make sure they trade in front of you. Make sure you see, you've got to practice what you preach. And people do it all the time. They ask me, that's number one. And I agree. And number two, what you need to also look at is if it's like going on a date. You know what I mean? Like you're attracted to the person or you're not. You know what I mean? Like, if you're looking to get married and whatever, looking to have a relationship, right away if you're attracted to the person. There's a lot of people out there to pick it. You could pick from. And it should just kick in or not immediately.
So some really good people out there, that's come along. Some young guys are pretty good. It's just that apply that test I just gave you, and you'll find out you'll be better off because it's worked good for me for the last 30 years. Okay, because everybody talks a good game. This is a hard game that we're doing, and that you're trying to enter into. And I think that you'll find that if you find the right person that fits your type personality and where you're interested, you'll do a lot better.
Yeah. So before we go, Tom, any last minute words of wisdom that you give anybody before we can go that you can kind of for someone that's that's not doing well, that needs help or looking for somebody, what would you tell them?
I would tell them the first thing I would do, number one, I'd get that book, The World's Greatest Stock Trader by Richard Smitten. You can get it on Amazon. I'd get that book. And, while you're there, get my 3 books. I think that would help you. And then, search around, attend, when I'm live, you ought to come watch me live when I'm live. And when Fausto's live, watch him. And, you can go to DTItrader.com and figure out when we're doing stuff and, hang around. You'll hear some good stuff. I've got one thing that's totally free, Fausto. It's called T-Buzz TV. I do a 2-minute video sometimes a minute, but 2 minutes when I really got a lot to talk about. But I do this every morning. It's called DTItrader.com/T-Buzz TV. And every morning I put out a video on the day's market. I give a pivot number. I'll say, this is where I'm looking today. It's a pretty good 2-minute video if I last that long. Maybe some days are a minute.
Yeah, well, listen, it's you know what? Everyone, I think it's everyone's attention span. And by the way, there's the link, everyone up there. There's Tom's email, and you can add that to the end of it. I know you could probably go to his TV Buzz after that. It'll be on his homepage of this site. But with that said, Tom, listen, it's great having you. It's great seeing you. I got to come down in Florida again and hang out. And
your money's no good if you come. Okay. So
It never is with
we'll
you.
go eat. Yeah.
Was it the hedge, the hatch? What is it called? What's that?
Say what?
That place took me last time? The hedge, the hatch. What is it called? The breakfast place.
Yeah. First.
First watch.
Yeah. First watch. That's what it was. First watch.
We were there.
Great breakfast.
Very great breakfast. All right. Well, everyone, thanks for listening. And let me just let everybody know that we will have some shorts made out of this one. They'll be up there today. Just make sure you like the channel, subscribe to it, ring the bell. We'll make some nice little 60-second shorts of the highlights of this. Plus, you get the long version. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like us, and friend us. Tom, thanks for being here. Look forward to seeing you. And everybody, we'll see you next week for another episode here of Cyber Traders. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
Enjoyed it. Great talking to you, Fausto. See ya. And thank you, Rich. Appreciate it.